ending sexual harassment in the educational sector should involve men, and that our leg in driving thus means that we're contributing to it immensely. I'll only pay small attention to the active role. My partner is going to build a case on that. I would like to highlight that the active role that men play. I'll highlight a scenario where us as guys perpetuate demeaning terms and derogatory terms for women who are seen as whorish, to put it into terms. Women who have been taken advantage of by this system that we live in. By creating that atmosphere, we are encouraging sexual harassment in the educational sector, and therefore we should recognize that as a role in its own. We recognize that patriarchy diminishes women's voices in driving their issues of harassment and inequality. To this extent, the UN women claim that with the current trajectory, we will be set to be 20 years behind the goals that we set for 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals that we set for 2030, if there is no change in what we're doing. So that means that patriarchy on its own is badly impacting the story of women. So we should recognize that patriarchy and sexual harassment in education is being played by men.
The leader of the opposition is going to come and he is going to present their case.
Pleasant day to you all, noble delegates. Now, my role in this debate is going to be to articulate to you what the main argument of the opposing the opposing side of this debate is, and at the same time I will be crushing or taking into account some of the points that have been presented by the Prime Minister of the government side, and presenting to you why we think young men are not to blame for the perpetuation of sexual harassment and patriarchy in the educational sector. Now, our definition of young men, which we were not given by the government side, is we are basically regarding young men as people who are in the age characteristic of 18 to 35. Now, we think that to perpetuate is to prolong the existence of, and that patriarchy is a system of society in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. And sexual harassment being a behavior that is characterized by the making of unwelcome and inappropriate sexual remarks or physical evidence, or physical advances rather, in a professional situation. Now, the main points that I'm going to be bringing to you during the course of my 5-minute speech, and that will be articulated further by my partner, Denied, are going to be centered around the main facts of politics, conditioning, and submission. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for us to take things into perspective, and if we look at the politics of Zimbabwe, we need to look at things, and when we realize that the educational sector is a subset of the political sector, it is defined and it is governed by the laws which are given by the political sector. So the educational sector cannot just go ahead and do something unless it has been directed or given up in some form by the political sector. Now, let's take a look at the political sector. Now, when we look at Zimbabwe and we look at the fact that over the 39 years since we've had independence, yes?
Are you saying that the political sector doesn't have any patriarchy in it?
That is exactly what I'm trying to say. Now, the political sector, it does have patriarchy. But then the problem with the patriarchy that is in the political sector is that it has been initiated and it is being perpetuated and supported by people who hold positions of power and are older. They are not in the characteristic which I have given of 18 to 35 years. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we look at the fact that over all these years, how many people do we have in government right now? How many cabinet ministers are in that class of 18 to 35? How many young men do we have? How many women do we have how many women and young men do we have who are occupying who are occupying the senior government positions? Now, what we think is that as a result of the fact that government has been directed by people who are senior and are not in the age bracket of 18 to 35, then we cannot continue to blame young men because they are just being brought up into a system. Yes?
Do you think young men don't have a role to dismantle what exists in government by electing?
They have a role, but then what we are saying that it is not possible for them to carry out that role because they do not have the power. The people who have the power to make laws and to implement them are people who are senior, and we do not have young men who have got that ability because they have not been given that power. Now we want to look at the aspect of conditioning, whereby we want to say that young men have grown up in a system whereby they have been told by their elders, not just their elders, but also the women, that the men are the strong people, and that same conditioning has been given to women. And as a result of that conditioning, that women have grown up in a spirit of submission, whereby they have been trained and told that they are acted, denied, that they are being given the role of the helper, the role of the supporter, and they are not allowed to take up the role of enacting things, of putting things into place. Now we think that as a result, it is not right for us to blame young men for the perpetuation of patriarchy, because it is not in the power of the young men. They have been conditioned and they have been upraised in a system which supports the older people, and there is little that they can do because their hands are tied. Ladies and gentlemen, since Zimbabwe attained independence, there is only one vice chancellor in the history of Zimbabwe who is female, and she is only that vice chancellor because she was the founder of that particular university. In the history of Zimbabwe, there has only been one female SRC president. Now we are saying that young men have not been given the opportunities for them. It is not just about blaming young men, because there are older people who have made it difficult for women to be given those things. Right? So it is not possible for us to blame young men. Now, as I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that blaming young men, it is not only naive and unreasonable, but it is unfair to the young men because they cannot do anything. They are merely pawns in a chess game. They have not the power that they require in order for them to put things into power, in order for them to help the women to get the assistance that they need so that they can be empowered. With this, I rest my case. Thank you.
Panel, the opposition delegation has automatically lost this debate for two specific reasons. Firstly, he, by then standing up and speaking his entire case, is saying that this entire conference of calling young people and this entire men's conference of sitting young people down is completely useless, because according to him, men have no power, young men have no power to do anything. So why bother spending 3 days at a conference when you don't have power to do something? Your logic is flawed in that aspect. Number two, his argument basically says that if your father is an alcoholic and you grow up as an alcoholic, and then we can't blame you because your father is also an alcoholic. We think that young people have got brains to understand between right and wrong. We think that when young people, especially when young people, they know that this is right and wrong, they have a burden to abolish patriarchy and put an end to the abuse and systematic abuse of women. So the entire delegation lost. Opposition team consists of one important factor. He tells us that young men are conditioned and this is how they are raised. And we agree with that. But we think that in order for anyone to break a cycle, it is the duty of the people who exist in that cycle to break it. I'll explain why. I'll tell you right now that it is no secret that any young person knows that it is wrong to sell a woman, that if a blizzard arrives to your campus and say that please find me 5 young girls to take you, I'll give you 10 years. We think that any rational child knows that this is the wrong thing to do, but we still find this happening in our college campuses. We don't think you need any laws or policies to put an end to that, and we think that this is why they're perpetuating violence. Make it good.
Please comment the view that men are not the custodians of patriarchal culture in society.
That's not the way the debate is. The debate is the debate is not who the founder of patriarchy is. The debate is who is allowing patriarchy to continue and who are the people pushing the patriarchy agenda. This is what we're arguing today, not who the founder of patriarchy is. Let's start the debate. The debate exists in two spheres. The Prime Minister explains to you that the women, by playing a passive role, by allowing patriarchy to exist in our society, are perpetrators of that very same thing. Which is why in Nazi Germany, blame is allocated on the German people because they allowed Jewish people to be slaughtered, and nothing was done by that thing, and we think that is particularly wrong. But secondly, which is going to be my argument today, is the active role that they intentionally play. I'll break down into 3 levels of analysis. Firstly, I'll explain to you what toxic masculinity is and how it involves everything that we do. Secondly, I'll explain to you gender roles and how young men in college campuses perpetuate gender roles. And thirdly, I'll talk about male privilege and how men abuse their male privilege and use it to disenfranchise women. Let's begin on toxic masculinity. As young men, we are taught that men don't cry, and which is why when the situation comes for you to exhibit emotional tendencies, nothing happens. You don't exhibit emotional tendencies because you lie to yourselves as women comes to say that if a man cries, we call them weak, we call them this. At the end of the day, because emotions are being suppressed down by our fellow peers, we don't look weak in front of your fellow peers. We think that this is why we end up having built up tensions and built up angers, which is why we then let out those frustrations on our women, on our young ladies, which is why we have gender-based violence. We think that the fact that our peers stand amongst each other and look down on a person who expresses their emotions and cries all those things is how men perpetuate violence or perpetuate patriarchy in college campuses. Secondly, we'll talk about gender roles. We tell you that when it comes to clubbing, you have caucuses of men who will sit down and unilaterally agree that we need to take girls out and go to a party, we need to get them drunk, we need to have sex. And these are conferences and caucuses that happen, and that each and every single person here knows as well. No, your case was weak, I'm not taking anymore. Right? We think that this is the way in which patriarchy does, because we allow such things to happen and we don't do anything about it. We think that anyone who tells you that no, it's not your fault when you intentionally go to each hostel, intentionally call girls for the single purpose of getting them drunk, for the single purpose of sleeping with them, we think that you're perpetuating patriarchy and sexual harassment at the highest level. We tell you right now that if a girl walks in here with a short skirt, each and every single person will make a sound or comment and sexually harass that person. And they will come up and say that no, it's not our fault, it's our parents' fault. That is a nonsensical argument, and the reason, and the people like this are the people who perpetuate sexual harassment on college campuses, right? First of all, secondly, we're going to talk about how talk about issues of clothes and dress codes, and also how young people, it is known that young people statistically watch a lot of porn. And by virtue of watching porn, you can't blame anyone because your parents do not sit you down and make you watch porn. And it's not that you agree by a source of people. What porn does to you, that it teaches you that the role of women is for you to enter your penis into their vaginas and come, which is not the only role of women. But we think that institutions like porn and all the things that we intentionally watch ourselves, no parent will sit you down and tell you to watch porn. But because you do it yourself, I think he's one of the victims, or one of the people who do so. We think that this is the reason why we have Let's wrap up the debate and tell you why the government wins this debate in Latin. First, we show you how youths in college campuses, the main specific, I wouldn't even talk about lecturers and tutors who have sex with students and do whatever the pass. Like, it's so much, I don't even understand how someone can do so. Let's round up the debate. We tell you about toxic masculinity and how men, because we're taught how not to express our emotions, we violently do so on our women. We tell you about male privilege, how we abuse the fact that we are male and we violate our women. We tell you about gender roles in terms of how men round up clubs, how people are paid to bring women to bless us, and how men actively and quasi-passively, linear, also doing all these things with this opening government wins this debate. Thanks very much.
First, that I have a pure one, Ebenezer. What is who are men the main drivers of patriarchal culture in society? And fail to answer this question. This is where I want to dwell on. Panel, we believe that it's very problematic for government to blame the poor young men in the educational sector for the problems of patriarchy and sexual harassment. Ladies and gentlemen, reducing them to a subclass of human existence by destroying their dignity, by presenting a false clause. Ladies and gentlemen, in my speech, I'm going to present on who are the real stakeholders in perpetuating this problem of patriarchy and sexual harassment in the educational sector. Panel, we look at the point of, we're dwelling on what is sexual harassment. We're dwelling on which definition of sexual harassment. We're saying that sexual harassment is the behavior characterized by the making of unwelcome and inappropriate remarks, physical advances in any professional or social situation. And as my partner has already said, politics has become toxic in Zimbabwe. It's the politics that has also drawn into the educational sector that's perpetuating patriarchy, the way men hold power within the educational sector. Since 1980, we've only had one vice chancellor, that is Professor sit down, let me educate you. Since 1980, Zimbabwe has only one vice chancellor, which is Professor of the Women's University in Africa. We've only witnessed one female almost to a girl, that is Mutete. She became a PEMSEC of the Ministry of Higher Teacher of Higher Teacher Education. Yet we all know the robots, the dogoras, the readers. So the politics has become so toxic that it has infiltrated the education sector. So we're saying young men, particularly looking at the age that the evidence I have given you, are merely pawns in the chess game. They are also victims. In as much as young men would like to stop patriarchy in the education sector, they are merely victims of a political system that has infiltrated the education sector. Thereby, the major stakeholders in this situation is the politics which has become toxic, rather than young men is put for them and sit down. You felt to do something now. So now, going also forward with our situation, we're also saying that females themselves are also the perpetrators of patriarchy and sexual harassment within the educational sector. Why am I saying this panel? We're saying that women themselves demographically constitute a great percentage, 60% of all most educational institutions. How many excessive female presence in Zimbabwe? very few ladies and gentlemen, less than 2 ladies and gentlemen. And gentlemen, females themselves, ladies and gentlemen, are the ones perpetuating patriarchy, ladies and gentlemen. They are perpetuating the men hold the power, ladies and gentlemen, because they're trying to hold their own fellow men into power, ladies and gentlemen. And yet they blame young men. That is very stupid to sit down. Ladies and gentlemen, also going forward, we're saying that the family is the brewery of patriarchal society, of patriarchal cultures within society. And the females, the same women coming in and saying that we are being harassed, the pitiful argument by Ebenezer, that they're coming in and being harassed in the education sector is very pitiful. Why am I saying this? Because females, before they come into the educational sector, educational opportunity, they're coming from their homes, and they're being taught to be submissive to men. Sit down, I won't take your peers for me. So they're coming into the educational sector, educational opportunity, and submitting themselves to men, which is what they've been taught from homes, and then they come and then infiltrate the educational system, and then we blame the young men. It's actually the young men which are victims of sexual harassment from the women. Why am I saying this? Women, due to their blood of cultural practice, of patriarchal culture from the house, from their homes, come and use what they say, the sexual harassment, hastily using their bodies, to young men who might be lecturers with the ages, which we want to find as my sit down. So let's it was truly shown that women themselves perpetuate patriarchy and sexual harassment in the educational sector, and the politics itself is toxic, regimen. So it's the same women, regimen, which comes with the toxic narrative, regimen, of submitting themselves to men and using their sexual hassles, regimen, to perpetuate patriarchy, regimen. So why do you deserve to be as the opposite position? Gentlemen, we have come to show you that men are not the cardinals, holders of patriarchal culture in society. It is rather women who come with their harmful toxic narratives from their houses to come and influence the educational sector and then try to blame it on the young men. We have shown you that men are not the largest stakeholders in perpetuating patriarchy in the educational sector. It is rather the politics, that is the toxic politics that has infiltrated the educational sector, such that men themselves, even if they want to destroy the group of patriarchy, they cannot, because the politics has become so toxic that even men themselves are victims of women. So young men in the educational sector are merely pawns in the chess game. They are victims of themselves of patriarchy and what? And sexual harassment in the educational sector. That's what we're saying as the opening opposition. So the government has failed to articulate why we should blame the young men. We have given you who are the main stakeholders perpetuating patriarchy and sexual harassment in the sector, which is the toxic politics within the country and women themselves. So we deserve to win this debate. Also, show you that men are merely victims and not stakeholders of this. I thank you.
Okay, so then this is what I'm going to do in this debate, besides cleaning up the mess that the opposition has made. First of all, I'm going to show you how the arguments that were said by the government side are going to be justified and how the arguments are going to stand strong. The second thing, I'm going to show you how the opposition is very wrong when they tell us that when it comes to matter of us perpetuating patriarchy and sexual harassment in the education sector, is because the education sector itself is a subset of the political sector, so thus we blame the political sector. That's wrong. Don't relate for yourself. Then the second point that we are going to crash is whereby they are going to tell us that it's actually the political sector which is going to institutionalize this, right? We are going to agree. It's actually the political sector that is institutionalizing this. But then when it comes to perpetuating this, it's not going to be the political sector. It's going to be the young men that are going to be within that set framework, right? And the third thing that we are going to show you is how we are going to win this debate as a whole bench, and how closing government is going to be position 1 and how opening government is going to be position 2. If it's other ways around, it's going to be 1 and 2. Okay, so then to begin this debate, we have a problem when the opening opposition is going to come on stage and they tell us that we know that the educational sector is a subset of the political sector. So we are going to have a problem whereby we are the ones that are saying that the men are perpetuating this patriarchy and sexual harassment in the education sector. The blame is actually supposed to be given to the government itself. But then we believe that this is going to be identified in the scene that we know that definitely the government has institutionalized this, right? But then it's not the government that is perpetuating this. Who are the people that are perpetuating this? The people that are perpetuating this are going to be the students that are going to be found in such education sector institutions. The people that are going to be perpetuating this is us, young men, at the end of the day. So that means we are not supposed to involve the political sector, and that was wrong, and that was total opinion when we ran a political argument. So then the second thing that they are going to tell us, they're going to tell us that if there is any chance that sexual harassment is okay, and if there is any chance that that we have perpetuated patriarchy and it has been unfair to the women that are going to be found within that educational sector, one is supposed to be the problem of the society that you grew up with. If you are talking about the problem of society that you grew up with, that's why we have freedom of choice. We are supposed to choose to change that society and to reimagine that society. If the society that we lived in the past is whereby we perpetuate patriarchy and sexual harassment, it's now up to us young men to reimagine the society and to change the society. But then if you are not changing it and you are continuing with it, that means at the end of the day we are still perpetuating patriarchy and we are still perpetuating sexual harassment. So that was totally wrong. Okay, sir.
Men are victims of this political cancer system. Comment.
We totally agree that men are political victims, right? But then it's going to be problematic when they are the ones that are going to be perpetuating it at the end of the day. It's not the politics that is perpetuating it. It's the young men that are perpetuating it. Sit down, you'll be again. Okay, so then now, going on to what we are saying at the government side, right? First of all, we are going to be telling you about a patriarchal system, whereby at the end of the day, men are going to be deemed leaders, and the rest are going to be deemed supporting units. So the moment that we are going to have men being team leaders and the rest being supporting units, it's whereby at the end of the day, a man is the one who is going to be perpetuating sexual harassment. A man is the one who is going to be perpetuating patriarchy. Because already the description of patriarchy itself, it's whereby the males are the leaders and the rest, that means counting are going to be the supporting structures. So that is why we are going to tell you that definitely in an educational sector, it's the men that are the ones that are going to be perpetuating. It's us young men that are the ones that are perpetuating the patriarchal system. So then to answer your question, they said that when they lied and they said that there's been one female SRC president, right? Since they lied that there's been one SRC president, let's just assume that they are telling the truth. Let's say there's only one person who has ever become the SRC president in Zimbabwe. If that is going to be the vote, it's us men who are going to vote for the men, right? And we are going to vote for the gentleman who is going to be running, and we are not going to vote for the female. So at the end of the day, that is where you are going to realize that you automatically won, due to the fact that it's men who are perpetuating this patriarchy, whereby they believe that women they cannot rule, whereby they believe that the voice of the woman cannot be strong enough. So at the end of the day, it's still us young men that are perpetuating this patriarchy, because we are the ones that didn't vote for this lady, because according to patriarchal system definition, the man is supposed to be the leader, the female is supposed to be the support unit, right? Then going on to sexual harassment itself. When we are looking at sexual harassment itself, first of all, we have to consider the fact that looking at the males are the ones that are going to validate what is going to be attractive and what is going to be unattractive. Men are the ones that are going to validate what is going to be ugly and what is going to be beautiful in society. So I believe that them perpetuating sexual harassment in the form of whereby this sexual harassment is going to be in terms of verbal comments, we believe that it's men who are going to be perpetuating this in the educational sector, because they've given them and validated themselves the right, according to the patriarchal system, to say that this girl is going to be beautiful, this girl is going to be ugly. A girl who is going to be fat is going to be ugly, and a girl who is going to be slender is going to be beautiful. A girl who is going to have buttocks is going to be attractive, and the one who is going to have a flat waist is going to be unattractive. So at the end of the day, that is why we at the government side are going to tell you that definitely these people are going to be perpetuating patriarchy and self-harassment. It's going to be us young men. It's not a matter of institutionalization, it's a matter of perpetuation at the end of the day.
Gentlemen, of course they have presented in a good way. They said a lot of information without statistics background. So, of all of the things that they were saying, it doesn't make sense if we say that young men are the perpetrators in patriarchy and sexual harassment, if you do not give us statistics on how they are influencing in the educational sector. Therefore, we ought to understand what are the educational sectors which they failed to define. Therefore, what I'm going to start to explain is that, of course, they said a lot of information, but according to the Herald of Zimbabwe published in February 2018 and 2017, 75% of the females who were sexually harassed at all the universities in Zimbabwe, about 85% of the victimizers were the staff members and males. Therefore, we cannot explain that young men, they are perpetuating patriarchy in this. Of course, please sit down. You failed to explain your points. You have to understand this. the issue of educational sectors, we talk about the secondary sector, we talk about the tertiary sector. According to the definition presented by the first speaker on my side, he explained that in terms of young people, we talk about people who are from the age of 15 to 25, according to say what. And from 15 to 30, we talk about the definition of population. But combining the two, we have to understand that in educational facilities such as high school, giving you an example, a young man who is of age 15 to 16, how then is he able to sexually harass when his ideas can easily be suppressed? So you have to understand that as young men we have gathered in here. Why? Because we need information. What information? To advocate against sexual harassment. For a point of information that I have to give you, at University of Technology, we had a roadshow, a march, combined with females to fight against sexual harassment on the campus. We conducted talk shows to fight against sexual harassment. Therefore, as young men, we are standing, using our energy, using our information, using our knowledge to fight against sexual harassment. Therefore, we cannot justify the fact that young men, they are the patriarchy into sexual harassment. For going back on the secondary institution, you have to understand that it was published by Taylor Francis. A sample was conducted at Masingo, and it was found that the teachers, the tutors, 75% of them contributed to sexual harassment, and 22% of young men contributed to sexual harassment. Here we are here to discuss that young men are the perpetrators, young men are causing sexual harassment. Therefore, we cannot justify with these statistics that young men are perpetrators.
Done those things. This is a clear example of when the government tells you vote ZANU, you go and vote NDC. This is a clear example that people are not governed and shaped by what they are told by governments, because people are rational enough, particularly when you speak of young men in tertiary institutions. You are doing a degree, a 5-year degree. You are training to be a teacher, and you will be shallow enough to believe that what government says is what you do. And we think it is very sad to think that an entire bench would agree that young men go around, rape girls, make comments, body shame, slut shame, all because government does the same thing. And we've already showed you that people do act independently outside government. But the most painful thing that we get sit down from opposition is how they talk about, particularly closing, how no, it's not young men, it's tutors. Pano, let me tell you what a tutor is. I graduate next year at the Midland State University. It means in 2021, when I am 24 years old, I can become a tutor. And these are the majority of tutors you find at the University of Zimbabwe. These are the majority of tutors you find at MSU. And these same tutors are the ones who end up calling girls and having sex with girls, forcing girls for marks. So I think today's debate is not just about young men who are students. It is about the young men who exist within tertiary institutions. And we think the idea that lecturers are only old men is flawed in today's debate, because I can count majority of lecturers at any university who are even under the age of 30, because it is possible to get a PhD before the age of 30. So the biggest flaw in their case is to assume that young men are only students. But we'll still show you how even students are the biggest criminals when it comes to patriarchy and sexual harassment. So I think the brilliant characterization you get from government as a bench is the world we live in. But let me tell you one thing, we live in a world where you already have an increase, where you have a growth in the number of social movements that try to fight for women and create safe spaces for women within educational sectors. And that alone must tell you that the perpetuation of patriarchy and sexual harassment is on the rise. When you have the rise in cases of movements like Lest We Forget, a movement about how college people remember the amount of girls who've been murdered, who've died due to unfair treatment they get from their fellow students, from the rape that they've gotten from their boyfriends. We think at the end of the day, it tells you that we still exist in a very unsafe educational sector, not due to lecturers only, but due to even the boys who are seated here in this conference. So importantly, you also need to note that where does this sexual harassment particularly take place? Firstly, we think on-campus relationships have been flawed and have been characterized by so much sexual harassment. We tell you that at the end of the day, young boys do not understand what no means and what consent means. And this is what we tell you from government. That it is the young boys who don't understand that when your girlfriend has sex with you today, tomorrow they're allowed to say no. The following day they can still say no. It is these same young boys who force girls to have sex with them. And at the end of the day, so for you to come here and tell us that young boys do not even perpetuate sexual harassment, it is a lie. But we think importantly what you get from closing government is the difference between institutionalizing something and perpetuating it. We think their case on government does this, government does that, speaks to institutionalization. It is the family that institutionalizes patriarchy. But when we speak of perpetuating, we are talking about who carries it forward, who then walks with it into the education sector and demonstrate what patriarchy is. And for us to just think it is lecturer, it is a lie. We think it is the young men who go into these institutions and at the end of the day body shame, slut shame, and victimize women. So at the end of the day, what do you particularly get from government? We think from government we tell you explicitly what patriarchy means. It means that men dominate. It means we celebrate what is masculine. It means women become subordinates. And we think this is what young men in tertiary institutions have been doing for the greatest time. We think young men in tertiary institutions, like UN Women even tells you that 1 in 4 women who have been sexually harassed or abused, it has happened with an intimate partner, which means their boyfriend, which means their brother, which means, like, so for you to come here and discredit that young men do not perpetuate and blame it on government, we think it is false. So at the end of the day, what do you particularly get from closing? That ensures that we get first in today's debate. We clearly show you the difference between institutionalizing something and perpetuating something. And we clearly show you that young men in tertiary institutions are the rapists that the Me Too movement is trying to fight. They are the, like, young men in tertiary institutions. We agree they've been brought up in a very toxic way, but we think they have played a very pivotal role in carrying up that toxic masculinity into the tertiary institutions.
I'm going to begin my debate by arguing what the leader of government just alluded to, that we are blaming it on government. It's not just government that's causing these young men to perpetuate sexual harassment. We are talking of issues to do with society in general, pushing these ideas that young men, should be involved in supporting sexual harassment. We are also looking at the political front. Yes, politics is affecting the young people, the young men, in that it is greatly limiting. Okay. Let me start again. As closing opposition, we are saying that the young men are not perpetuating patriarchy and sexual harassment in today's educational sector. Why? We're saying that these young men, they also experience sexual harassment, just the same as females experience sexual harassment. Sit down. For example, the feminist movement is perpetuating more on the side of the females. It's advocating for the rights of females over the rights of males. This is unfair as we see that the young men are being secluded, they're being excluded from their rights as well as young men. So another point is that young men are also advocating for the end of this sexual harassment in that by taking part in such initiatives, such as this Say What, road shows, all these workshops, they are not a waste of time. We are the young people, we are the young men, we are the ones who are going to change this whole thing around. We have to refocus on that. We have to gain back, we have to use that masculinity to channel it towards these initiatives to end such sexual harassment. Lastly, misconceptions about gender equality by women are problematic, and that these lead to young men instigating harassment as society itself is a motivating factor through miscommunication between young men and women in educational sectors, resulting in the supposed sexual harassment. We're saying that, sit down. We're saying that females, women in particular, fail to put themselves in the shoes of these young men. Because now they bring up in a world where it's more about the women's rights, right? But what about the males' rights? Because right now it's even 16 days of activism against violence against women and children. But what about the violence against men? Why are we not tackling that? So that is our point. We are saying that, sit down, sir. We're saying that we need to empower young men tonight. We need to empower young men on these issues. Because, yes, as we have alluded to, that the society is greatly affecting these young men. These young men, they are victims of their upbringing. They're taught that, you need to, in the grow up in societies where they're greatly influenced by their parents, they have no choice but to just follow the societal norms, to go with the norms, and they're not being allowed to really make their own decisions, independent decisions. And the last point is that, as pointed out by the last speaker, that the sexual violence, the sexual harassment against by young men is leading to the so-called Me Too movements. We are saying that as closing opposition, that why don't we start these movements for men as well? Because these things are also happening to men. It's not just women. Yes, these things may seem taboo, may not be free to disclose these issues, but these are things that are actually happening. I'll close off by rebutting what was said by the Deputy Prime Minister about so-called toxic masculinity, gender roles, male privilege. He didn't give any clear definition of what male privilege was. Then he went on to talk about institutions like porn. No, porn is not the institution here, it's the educational sectors, the educational institutions, and therefore, in their case, is.
The debate competition was meant to help deepen discussion on issues that men strongly feel about, either as proponents of violence or barriers to non-violent communities. And we've come to the end of our debate session.